Leon, thanks so much for coming down. It's nice to see you. It's been a while since we've actually sat down and had a chat.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's life-changing moments again.
Yeah, so what are you doing with yourself these days?
Honestly, just trying to be as productive as I can with the pandemic situation. It's put a pause on life really in a lot of aspects, but just trying to be as positive as I can, still trying to be the best daddy, juggling my kids. Work-wise has been a little bit inconsistent, but just trying to sort of stay up and get ahead. I am co-hosting at TalkSport, which was a massive highlight for me. Last year, we've done our first series after the lights go out with Steve Harmison. So it's myself and Steve Harmison co-hosting, and the show is really based about athletes who have gone through certain struggles, whether that be during their careers or after. And we are just trying to highlight and give them a platform to be able to express what they went through while going through their struggles, and maybe what were the triggers, and why do athletes seem to have issues towards whether that be the end or when they exactly finish. Why do so many not necessarily financially unstable, but why are they emotionally and mentally unstable? So it's been fantastic. Now we're into our second season.
Who are some of the guests you've had on so far?
Matthew Everington was fantastic. He touched on a lot about his gambling issues. Kieran Dyer, another fantastic interview, really. He touched on a lot of childhood trauma, which has developed into deeper issues. Even when he's been playing, top level football. Although injuries was a massive aspect of him breaking down, which I totally understood, which I could relate to, there was a lot of childhood trauma involved with that. So that stood out for me. Just done Rebecca Addington the other day, which was another really good interview.
So that's quite an interesting thing. I know that you're up for talking about mental health and all the rest of it, but when someone's sharing the problems with you, you've suffered in the past, it can take quite a bit out of you as well to listen to the stories. I find it quite fatiguing. I've been doing this podcast 3 years, and sometimes people share so much, which is great, but at the end of it, you're drained.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about life-changing moments in your life, whether that be through a trauma process, or just things that have happened in your personal life, what I'm talking about is really based around mental health, your mental well-being. So, having said that, what I'm starting to learn and educate myself with is, as you quite rightly what you're saying, is about how draining it actually becomes. You're putting so much energy and passion into even maybe asking a question around that area that it will have a massive effect in how whatever's received back. So energy-wise, it's a lot.
In terms of what you're doing now as well, didn't I see that Gary Logan tagged you in something the other day, some sort of music video? Have you done a music video? Or is it a ringer for you?
Are you talking about Johnny Nelson?
Maybe it was Johnny.
It was Johnny.
What's this? Was it you?
Oh yeah, no. So I'm a man of hidden. I'm a man of hidden talent. So you know what it is. Not a lot of people know that. So when I was playing football, so before football, I went to drama school.
Okay.
And was doing a lot of acting and a lot of theatre stuff, which I don't really like to tell people too much. It's a bit like, do you know what I mean? But I went to theatre school and I really enjoyed that aspect of acting, got into singing and stuff. And then when I was actually playing through my football career, one of my hobbies was going to a studio and writing songs and literally laying down vocals. So I've got loads of songs, mate.
So, but what I saw was a music video.
A music video I'd done with, so I wrote a song. After my football career finished, I've done a bit more writing, got in the studio, and I could hold my own from a vocal point of view. And I wrote a song, called up a couple of my, and I'm good friends with MC Harvey. Called him up and said, "What do you think of this tune?" Showed him the song, and he was like, "Lee, it's a banger." He says, like, "I want to jump on it." So he featured on the song, and then a young lady called Lady Leisha, who's on Dancing on Ice now, is very big in her field from a lyricist point of view, probably the best, really. She featured on the song as well. And then before you know it, I had a single out on iTunes called Finally. And then that was the video. The video is totally cringe.
So is that still is that still a career path for you? Is that still something you're revisiting? Is that done?
No. I never looked at singing as a career. I didn't want to be in that sort of platform of becoming a singer. That wasn't really what it was about. I just love music.
So was Johnny the first one that busted you then in boxing?
No. Coogan was, when Coogan noticed that I was doing a bit of singing and that, he was the actual first person who was a little bit, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And he even plays it in his car now and again.
Of course he said he does. Yeah, of course he said he does.
He plays in his car, so.
So, but what was, in terms of, you know, you said obviously singing actually or theatre came before football and boxing, but what actually was the first thing, you know, as a kid?
Boxing.
Was it?
Yeah.
Because of your dad and your uncles?
Yeah, so we sort of moved into a pub in Streatham called the Park Tavern, and I would have been around about 8, 9 years old, maybe, around that sort of time of going in there. And there was a boxing gym downstairs, sort of like a dungeon, kind of very
old school,
very rocky, just old school, the best days, the best gyms, you know, no modern aspect to it at all, just raw fighters going in there trying to train properly and trying to do their thing. And that's what I used to see day in, day out. So after school, I'd always take a trip down there, have a little watch of the fighters that used to come in, and there was several fighters that would come in, and you know, from the likes of Mark Prince's right through to my dad Duke, and people just sparring in there randomly. So I think my IQ was pretty decent from about age 8 up until I really started to take notice of the actual sport.
So as a kid, did you look up to boxers or footballers or both?
Footballer was, I didn't really look up to loads of footballers as such, but I had my idols who kind of mentored me through my football career. So Ian Wright was probably the most influential person for me, actually looking at him and saying, I want to do that. You know, looking at someone's character and the way he scored goals and the way he celebrated his goals, but in such a kind of South London rhythm to it, that appealed to me. So I locked onto that, and obviously John Barnes had a massive influence, and Pele obviously was a massive influence.
So how come the boxing thing wasn't something you followed through as a kid?
Do you know, it was a choice that I had to make, and I feel like, again, you know what it was? I was started off with football, so football came and I was doing okay, but I was on a trial at Crystal Palace, so about sort of 14 years old, a 6-month trial actually, and I was doing really well, and I ended up getting a YTS contract, so the Youth Development Scheme, back when they used to do all that.
Sure.
I ended up getting a 2-year apprenticeship, which was like a fantastic achievement for everything, you know.
Because a lot of people get let go at that point, don't they? And hearts broken and all the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't leave school with much, but put my heart and soul into achieving that particular contract. And you know, they kept me waiting for a little while, but for whatever reason, saw something in me. That kind of took off. And then there was like, a thin line where I could have completely let my life go, no more football, no more nothing, or I could have gone on to do exactly what I did. And it was as simple as this. A girl back then broke my heart. I was about 14 years old, but I was crippled from it. You know, when you're young, you fall in love.
End of the world. End of the world.
For about 2 weeks crying in my room. And I was at Crystal Palace at the time.
The worst thing is people start saying there's plenty more fish in the sea.
All these things were coming to effect, but you know, you have to kind of become a man and grow and find it within yourself. But I couldn't get over it, like really bad. And I was living with my dad at the time. And I remember him one morning coming in and I was in bed, no energy, couldn't get up. I'd say probably the first signs of depression, but I didn't know about it then. I was uneducated. What actually was going on, I was depressed. But my dad came in and he was like, son, and I always remember this because it sticks out. This is it then, yeah? You're gonna give up. You're gonna let everything go, yeah? No more football. You're gonna let this girl, whatever, and that's you. Like, but it was a harsh one. It wasn't like oh son, you know, don't worry, like blah blah. He kind of like had to go like that to me vocally. But what it did do was trigger. So the next day I remember visually. So the next day I went into training the next day, and my God, everything went into my football from that day forward. So I made a choice to use the pain, use the negative energy, and put it into something that I had still a chance to make it into. And I trained exceptionally, probably for the best part of the next 6 months. Started playing really well. I went into some serious zone to the point of like, best part of a year later, I was making my professional debut.
You said there was a fork in the road there where you could have gone on to live the life that you live, or just been cancelled out. What was the other fork? Where would that have taken you?
A lonely, destructive road. I don't really think I would have. It wouldn't have gone to where it needed to go. I just think sometimes in life, and I've done it at an early age, there was something in me that had the ability to fight back, and I had it then, and I had to find it within myself and make a choice. And I think sometimes when we're so low in life and so low, as simple as a broken heart or whatever, things affect people differently. So, you know, what affects me might not affect you, but there will be something that will affect you. How we show our character is how we deal with pain and what we do moving forward.
Your dad and Duke have both told me about what a tough man your granddad was. Did you have that kind of tough upbringing, that kind of tough love, or that old school fashioned upbringing?
Yeah, very much so. I was living with my mum up until about sort of age 11, and then, you know, I went to find my dad, and it was time to sort of.
Was this where your softer side comes from? Because you don't have that. You don't have that same fearsome McKenzie trait, if you see what I mean, in terms of what your dad is.
Elaborate in what you mean.
So the way that your dad will describe his father, sets a very. He describes a man, and Duke as well, describe a man that is intimidating and can be intimidating. I can see your dad being as quite intimidating, but with you, there's something that's, whether it's a modern thing where times have changed, society's changed, or maybe this is what I'm asking, or is it your mum's influence? You don't seem to be that same intimidating. You're more soulful, you're less blunt and abrupt. Did you break a cycle of tough love? Or are you just, your mother's son? What's the difference?
No.
What's the difference? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. My mum had a certain, to really break it down, my mum had a certain influence in being a fantastic woman and mum that she is. So there was a certain time she had to show me what she had to bring to my life. And then there's a certain transition where every son needs to know what it's like to become a man. And I think you need a good role model and a bit of strength from your dad to show you what it's like to have to fight back, what it's like to go through certain transitions. So I was very aware of the old school teachings. I had some old school teachings myself going through childhood, which is a lot different to the generation that's on my kids now. And I put my hands on my kids. Do you know what I mean? But
both your dad and Duke said they responded to tough love. You're indicating that you did. I know I did. It's just a different world now.
I think it's the reason why, you know, the likes of my dad and maybe several other dads have put that mark on it, especially with me. He's not like that now. My dad's different so if you speak to my younger brother now, he's different. He's been different with all of his children. But I guess it's knowing your children as well. It's like, for me, there was a certain level of respect that came from it. So if my mum was to tell me off in a way where it's like, you know, she was losing her temper, for me, I'm just like, do you know what I mean? But as soon as she said, all right, cool, I'm gonna call you dad, then there was a certain feeling of discomfort.
Yeah.
Because you know when someone comes through the door, it ain't verbal no more.
At the speed they come through the door.
It's not verbal no more. So therefore, there was a respect, and I totally believe that it was for the right reasons.
Sure.
But it doesn't work for every family. It doesn't work for every family. Sure. It won't work in this day and age because there's too many influences around.
When you did the YTS thing, were you a boot boy? Did you have to clean the boots, or were you a generation on from that?
Yeah, no, I done all that.
Who did you have?
John Solako.
Did you? What was that like?
Ray Houghton.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember them too.
Because that, there's, I mean, I know this is a boxing podcast, but I'm fascinated the fact that, the kids coming through in football now have so much, so little, and some haven't even played games, and they've got houses and all the rest of it.
Yeah, different lifestyle.
But when you came through, you had that hardship where people where you were the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah. I mean, we had jobs, the apprenticeship. And I really believe it's something that's missing in today's society within football. We've got a lot of young kids who are earning some fantastic money, and, good luck to them all. But there's that
paying your dues.
There's that kind of they lose that hunger, I believe, very, very young on, to what can really develop them to really going into that next stage of development. I just feel like we give a little bit too early.
When you joined Palace, though, and you got that contract, certainly when you turned pro in that, did you feel like you cracked it? Did you think this is it? This is life for the next 15 years and, everything's going to be great?
Uneducated again, I felt like, because I knew it was only a few years prior to that, I was watching Mark Bright and Ian Wright and Holmesdale, just watching them, wow, I want to do this. You know what I mean? Just seeing everything and, even watching them come out at Selhurst Park as men, watching them on that pitch. And it was just like, wow, it must be such a great feeling. And I don't even remember one time that I played at Selhurst Park when I was at Winterbourne School. And we played a private school called Cubner House. And that was the only time. And I was a left back then, believe it or not, I was a left back. It was the only time I'd sort of touch Sellers Park, but to actually pursue a dream that I'd been visualizing for a long time. I'd been visualizing, even to score my debut at the age of 17, I had been visualizing that I'm gonna score, I'm gonna do this.
Who did you score against?
Southend in a Coca-Cola Cup.
Did you think though that, like, 17 years old, this is my life for the next 15, 20 years?
I felt that I was definitely now in a privileged position to hit. I was quite unfortunate not to get like an England call up within that kind of era, to be honest. So I felt like I was playing first team football, and I felt like I should have been kind of given the chance as such. But then I'm competing with the likes of Michael Owen around that time, who broke through the same time as me, Jason Ewell, Carl Court at the time. There was a lot of good strikers within my era, unfortunately. So I just missed out on kind of pushing through England. There was rumours, but nothing really developed. I just felt that because I scored on my debut and I made such a massive impact, everyone kind of looked to this 17-year-old to be the next best thing, the next Ian Wright. And that got to me a little bit. Now I took on so much other pressure from not really being educated. I've only just come out of school, really, and I'm now playing professional football. It was a lot of pressure on me. And although I gave my heart and soul, ask any Palace fan. Furthermore, ask any club I've been at. Even if I didn't play too well, you know I'm there. You know that I'm going to fight for the team. And you know that, you know what, he's done his best today. But I didn't know where it would really sort of go. I just knew that I became a prolific goal scorer, probably leaving Crystal Palace and then finding myself as a very, very good striker.
So yeah, I mean, Fulham on loan, Peterborough on loan, and then a permanent, and then Norwich. And Norwich was a big deal, wasn't it?
I think Peterborough was a big deal from where I really found myself as a goal scorer. I think my ratio was like 1 in 2.5 games, like 1 in 2, 1 in 3.
What changed for you to improve like that? Do you know? Was it
confidence?
How did you get that? By scoring? Or
I got that from something that's within. I think you have to have, when you're in a special position to perform, you have to have something within anyway. You can't just, it's not just because someone's saying, I believe in you, you've got to have it within. Barry Fry was very instrumental because what he did was, to add to me believing in myself, was the way he talked to me was like, you're the man. You've come here, do what you want. Go and do what you want. Go and score goals. Gave me that freedom. With him doing that, that's exactly what happened, I feel.
Change your mindset.
Change my mindset, but just had the belief in me to say, you know, go and enjoy yourself. Go and do, I've seen you. Go and do what you do. You're brilliant.
Through this time, have you got interest in boxing? Are you following it? Are you doing it?
I always follow boxing. Yeah, I've always followed boxing. That's my true passion. I think that's why I don't do loads of football commentary and punditry, shall I say, because it's just not my passion in that respect. And that's not, I played it for 18 years.
Where did the passion go? And how did it leave?
Trauma. The passion went through trauma. So I went through a lot of trauma while playing professional football. And I think when you lose your identity a little bit through pain and, you know, I had about 8 operations in my career, and, you know, the in and out hospitals and scans that I had to have and MRIs, and, you know, it became pretty draining, and I lost my love for what I really truly loved as a boy, turned into me just trying to just hold on.
Because to the untrained eye, when you say, you know, when you talk about trauma and injuries and that, yeah, injuries suck, and that I understand that. But from the outside looking in, you're still in a privileged position. You're a footballer on a big fat paycheck. You're not even working. Is that how naive does that sound to you?
It's not naive, but you have to play. I suppose you have to sit there and play devil's advocate, because this is the question that people always raise. So from the outside, you can tick off certain things. 100% very privileged, very fortunate, and in a great position where my monthly income was, you know, considerate at the time I was playing. It was a great deal. But what everyone forgets is, if you've had no education in how to handle money, if you had no education in how to deal with, I suppose, physical trauma, where it will go into like a psychological breakdown, if you had no physical, I can't tell you how many times where, yes, I've got a comfort of a wage coming through every month, but if I'm not playing and I can't, my body's breaking down and I can't actually enjoy what I'm doing anymore, how long do you think that contract's going to last me? So it's very easy to say, oh yeah, well look how much money you're earning, you've got nothing to worry about, but am I a human being? Yeah. Do I have emotions? Yeah. Can things affect me in life? Yeah. It's just breaking things down and trying to, you know, if that person doesn't understand and thinks that money's the be and end all, it's not. I've heard Mike Tyson, who earned best part of whatever it was, £400 million, have no money left and sit there in an interview several years later and say, I'm broke. And for him to say that, he's basically saying that no one ever taught him how to handle money. Like no one ever, you know, he was uneducated in so many ways. And also wrong people around, wrong influence around, people that you're friends that make out to be, that actually are not.
Were you surrounded by them?
I had a lot of those. You'd be surprised when you're on Match of the Day every Saturday and people see your face, what that can do to other people's mindsets.
What did it do to you? Did you ever believe the hype?
Did I ever believe the hype? I believed scoring goals would put a highlight on things. Like I definitely took advantage of certain things, certain positions I was in.
Did it change your personality?
Success
and fame?
The reason why my personality changed is because I was extremely unhappy with what was being taken away from me. So football was being taken away from me and I couldn't control it. So I became really unhappy and fell really low and right deep into like a very depressive state, shall I say. And it affected everything. It affected my marriage. I became a very shallow, selfish, just like not a good husband at the time. I didn't really represent what I was about.
Did you have any self-esteem?
Sometimes.
Did you have a big ego?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say ego come into it a lot. Ego only left me when I actually had nothing. So again, it comes down to character. You know, what do you do? What does a man do when he actually has? It's easy when you've got money and you're surrounded by money, and you're surrounded by the highlight things.
Backslappers.
You're surrounded by all that. But once you take all that money away from a man, what is his character about?
At what point was that then, when you had nothing?
I came out of prison. Going through a second divorce. made bad choices, and had to be counted.
So the prison thing was a speeding ticket thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, speeding tickets. I gave someone my speeding tickets, and they wanted to make an example of the position and profile I had.
So you gave them the speeding tickets. So what? So you said you
So
pay
I'm going
these,
through.
and I'll
I'm
give
going
you the
through.
money.
I'm going through cameras several times, and didn't really think much about it, to be honest. I wasn't in a good place anyway. Not that it's an excuse. The law is the law, but I broke the law, and there was a guy that would, again,
Backslapper.
help footballers, help people, whatever. Done a lot of things.
How long did you get?
Gave me 6 months custodial sentence in an ACAT prison. Done about 4.5 months.
So how hard is that being a Premier League footballer with good looks, a lot going for him in Cat A prison?
Well, I was all over the news when I went into prison. So the first day I walked into prison, my name was getting shouted at, and a lot of young kids, actually, probably no younger than my son, really, 21, 22-year-olds, where they have made that life for them. So that's their life. So they see this footballer come in, and I'm a grown man then, best part of 33 years old, or whatever it was at the time, 34 years old, I can't remember now. I remember walking in, visually, one of the scariest moments, not so much because I can't look after myself, but you're going into a place where it's the unknown. There's badder men in them. There's bad people in there. And there was badder men in there than me. And that's something you have to accept. And the first first day when I went in and they shut the cell door, I remember I burst into tears, just thinking, wow, a lot going through my mind. How am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this? These four walls. Who's going to come in? Who's going to be my cellmate? Is he going to be a prick? Am I going to have to fight? Am I going to have to defend myself? There are loads of things going through my mind. But the tears stopped very quick. I had to become pretty, strong. And I became a different person, and I'd start boxing clever in a place that I was unfamiliar with. And a few days later, I had to, I remember going to one of the officers saying, can I get a job? Got a job, got myself a job, cleaning job. That went from cleaning job into the kitchens, serving food. Box clever. Then I started writing my book. And I started doing a diary every day. And I got loads of emails. We could get emails, but from a letter form.
Okay.
From strangers and letters. That was quite helpful. I've watched a lot of films as well. So, if the Hurricane can do it, I felt like, well, you know what? And he was in there for a long time. So I thought, no, I can do this.
Was it a hard time with other inmates? Were there some people that tested you?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I had to, God willing, I had a few, I've got in my DNA where I can actually be quite spiteful. If I'm hurt or threatened, I can look after myself. But I wasn't really too bothered in there. I was looked after. I didn't have to pay no one to look after me. There was a massive form of respect for me for just I think the football career I had, but the way maybe I conducted myself. So the badder people in there just looked after me. They know one guy said to me, who came into my cell, and the question always gets raised. So what are you in here for? You have to explain why and whatever. A lot of people lie, whatever. But this guy's in there for murder. And he's sitting at the end of my, sitting right by my bed. And I'm just going through it and, probably murdered the best part of 7 people or whatever it was, can't even remember. But you imagine that in your room when I'm sitting opposite a murderer now who's not actually proclaiming that to me, actually very normal speaking to me. And I got my kids up on my locker bit. I wouldn't say locker bit, my cupboard bit. And he's, oh, these your kids? I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, I've got kids. I miss them. And then I saw an emotional side. And before you know it, started seeing tears. And this is a big guy. That one left, another guy comes in. Started finding myself literally counselling in there. People coming to me, oh, I remember that goal you scored against Manchester United. I remember you, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, I'm counselling.
Helping, yeah.
Yeah. And that led me to write my book, Deep in Places. And when I left there, when I came out, and I understand now the reasons why so many struggle when they come out. So after you've done a lot of time inside a place like that, and I didn't really do too much time, but it was enough for me. It took me a long time to adapt again. So when I came out, I was still making destructive, wrong choices because my mind was just not in a great place. Didn't know what I was going to do, wasn't sure. And I didn't want to be in that place where I was once upon a time towards the end of my Charlton career, where I'm literally attempting my life and trying to check out because things are not going right. I didn't want to do that anymore. I had to hold on, and my kids are growing up. And I was like, well, if anything I need to fight for, that's for my girls. And that's it, made the call to Dad and said, Dad, I've got to jump in. And no one really knows that. All this Tyson Fury, because he's got such a fantastic profile, and, again, a role model in so many ways of what he's achieved. But I'd done it before him, like on a real. And my dad will vouch for that. We had to jump in the professional boxing ring at the age of 35, by the way, for me to fight back in life.
I wanted to just rewind a couple of times. You mentioned, well, firstly, I suppose, Charlton, you said coming to the end there, you thought about suicide and stuff. What was that? Was that the culmination of the injuries and you thinking, I can't keep that?
Combination of injuries, combination of adultery, combination of guilt. A lot of combinations all rolled into one. So I didn't feel proud of myself. Like, I didn't like what I had done. You know what I mean? In the respect of what I'm trying to represent. I wasn't really feeling that person. And I had to, a number of years, still probably to this day, I have to deal with a lot of guilt. And that's one of the biggest issues for me in my life right now is trying to accept what you can't change, but trying to move forward for what you can.
And then after Charlton, Kettering and Corby, one thing I wanted to ask, it's kind of like a fighter's career.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You get to the pinnacle and then it starts to wind down a bit and then you're out.
Yeah.
Is that a fair analogy? And is
it's
it
a fair analogy to the point of when I went to Kettering and Corby, this was a shadow of the Leo McKenzie that was once a professional footballer. Is
it a sobering thing to adjust to, going down back through the leagues, going the opposite way? Or is it still a good
I felt
gig?
like I didn't have nothing to prove. I didn't have nothing to prove to anyone. I'd done, my career is pretty much done. That was just me just trying to hold on to football and trying to get some enjoyment back into what I was doing. The problem I had with it is that you've got these younger kids who've never played top level in their life, breathing down my throat, trying to smash me to pieces, saying to me, oh, Mackenzie, you're not all that, are you? Mate, you've never even reached my levels. And to be perfectly honest with you, I can't be bothered right now because I'm at the end of my career, in my head. But, when it's time, it's time. And I just was like, I didn't do too long in those lower leagues anymore. Didn't have nothing to prove, and I thought, well, it's time.
Who were some of the standouts that you shared a pitch with in your Premier League years?
Oh,
because it was a glory period, wasn't it? You would have been
of my generation. For me, Thierry Henry was hands down exceptional. Stevie Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Paul Scholes, just a magician in himself. Defender-wise, I mean, in his prime, Rio Ferdinand was an absolute athlete.
Are you still in touch with many people in football?
A few, not loads. A few.
So you mentioned there, obviously, you wanted to fight back, so you grabbed the bull by the horns and started boxing. First and foremost, with your surname, does that make it tougher?
See, this is another interesting something. Not everyone would probably take in the right manner. Even my own son, who finds even everything I've achieved actually quite a lot of pressure for him. He created a lot of pressure for himself while being in school. He felt that pressure found him, but he didn't flip it and say, well, okay, let me just do what I got to do anyway. He found that pressure hard to deal with, which I understand to a certain extent. The difference with me is that I didn't go into boxing trying to be my dad or uncle. I didn't go into boxing trying to become a world champion.
But you had a surname to live up to that would impose
I didn't have a surname. The only thing I had to lay down and produce was to be able to fight. It wasn't about what I'm exactly going to win. I just needed to leave professional boxing knowing that another McKenzie came through and another McKenzie can fight. And I 100% left professional boxing, and I don't think anyone I fought, anyone I sparred would tell you any different.
What did you want out of it?
I wanted to win a professional belt, and that's what we achieved. Regardless of what boxers want to put it into, some will say, well, it's not really a belt or whatever. It's a professional belt. It's something that I just wanted to achieve.
You didn't fight as an amateur, right?
No, I had no fights as an amateur. No. I had 4 years in professional boxing to train as my dad, installed into me, but I kind of knew how to train to do be the best I could. My uncle obviously being there to kind of nurture some things from a technical point of view of what he saw. The interesting thing about those dynamics is where they both started, Duke and my dad both started off with me, but about 2 fights into my professional career, the smart thing about Duke is that he actually realized that I can't fight like him. I am very much my dad. Mm. To try and mold them together wasn't working, and I ended up drawing my third fight.
Darren McKenna.
I ended up drawing that fight, but what that did is that it kind of, I found me as a fighter, basically. I was a box fighter. I wasn't a tidy boxer who just wanted to have all the slick sort of moves. The problem I had is very much like what my dad had is I was ready to die in that ring. And not many fighters are ready to die.
Is that partly because everything you've been through,
I think
you
so.
would have been all right at peace?
But like you say, the McKenzie name holds a great value within boxing. And there's no way I was going to shame it. I was going to give my all. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's not even normal. So I was 35 years old. Like, I've never had an amateur fight, regardless of my DNA and IQ in boxing. I was 35 years old. And I'm going in with seasoned pros. And I'm handling myself. And it's not even the fights. It's everything I'm doing before that. It's going around the whole country without my dad, sparring with world champions, De Gales, Saunders, Eubanks, like sparring with all these people and learning in the space of what I had 4 years where I'm able to fight for English title, Southern Area title. And unfortunately, probably for them, like time.
You must have had a fascinating interview with the British Boxing Board of Control to get a license, because you were 35, you hadn't boxed as an amateur, and you'd been in prison.
Right, so here's another thing. The prison thing looked after itself because I'm very genuine in the way I speak.
Sure.
And I can only give a good account to myself and be honest. And
I guess they still brought it up though.
100% had to bring it up. But I had to say what it was for. What it was, it's not guns, it's not drugs. This is what it was for. But unfortunately, my profile led it into something that was blowing up and whatever. But I sparred with Richard Williams as I was just coming into professional boxing. Richard Williams was another influential person who I think had a massive impact in how my career went. From a educational point of view, I had some very tough spars at the beginning, you know.
With him? Or,
yeah. 2-3 rounds where I've never been in the ring like that kind of level. And he
could fight.
He could fight, and he showed me a lot of things until probably one day we sparred. Maybe it might have been probably 6 months on, and I sort of came through in a way where he said, "You're ready."
Did you have to turn pro? Was it a box you needed to tick in your mind?
It's always been a dream and passion of mine. I just never thought I'd get the opportunity to get into a bet. I've always visualized myself. I always had this thing about the ring entrance and walking into the ring, and you know, I've always had this feeling of how a boxer thinks and how he trains, and you know, even when I was playing professional boxing, even when I was playing professional, see what I mean?
You don't play boxing.
Yeah. So even when I was playing professional football, I was training as a boxer. So really and truly, I was a boxer turned footballer, really, when you look at the dynamics.
What's the deal with Curtis Woodhouse, and where do you think of him and what he achieved and that kind of thing?
I think Curtis, with the limited ability that he had.
As a footballer or a boxer?
No, he was a good footballer.
Yeah.
I don't think Curtis would be the first to say he didn't have much talent as a boxer, but I know from the way he played football and the way he did fight, he has got heart. And because he's got heart, that and his belief, he went on to win a British title, which is incredible, to the point of what was brought to him. And he got knocked out several times in his career before that opportunity. He'd lost a lot of times, 4 or 5 times in his career before getting to a British title. So there's something about his character that I salute. And I think he spoke really well of me. Where, you know, first time I sort of hear him speak about me, very similar question asked about me. And I just, you know, I was quite taken back by it because, again, you know, he's like, I think if you understand boxing, you can understand that anyone that gets into professional boxing ring at the age that I did, and within that time, you know, fight for titles like I did, I think that's what he was trying to say. Like, it's a special, it wouldn't really be done, really.
Do you wish you turned pro earlier? Do you wish you changed codes and everything earlier? No. After Darren McKenna, that draw, you won 6 on the bounce. Where did you think you were going with it?
As far as I could. as far as I could.
So fight by fight, let's
I started coming into myself, started feeling it. And then obviously my 7th fight against the kid John McCallum for British title eliminator. And there was a lot of needle before that fight, because he touched on, mental health, and he seemed to slam it. So he tried everything he could to get into my soul.
Did he?
Everything he could.
Did he manage to?
I wanted to bash him up so bad, but I had to hold it a little bit. Probably in that fight, for the first 2 rounds, he'd won. So for the first 2 rounds, he'd won, because I was like, did I feel great that night? I wouldn't say I felt even great that night, but there was no way I was gonna take him to that place, basically. And when, because I had in my head where I was about to take it, so I knew that it'd be good for sort of 2 rounds. So he was an amateur, very good amateur pedigree, or decent amateur pedigree, and he had a lot of experience, more so than me. So I knew for a few rounds it'd be pretty sharp and that. And then you'd ask him yourself, as 3, 4, 5, 6 started to go into play, then I started to just walk this guy down. Literally just kept walking towards him until he couldn't breathe no more. And that's where I started overtaking. And then I think it was for the 7th round, he didn't come up.
Was that your highlight?
It was my highlight, because this is the same person that said that he's going to retire me, but he's the one that didn't get off his stool. And we're cool now, by the way. That's not to rub. Do you know what it is as well? It takes a fight like that to humble someone.
To settle differences as well.
To settle differences, but to humble someone and to say I'm a special person. It's just the wrong person for you.
You lost to Jermaine Smile for the English title, losing on split.
Yeah, another fight as well, where this is the interesting fight of my career. 38 years old now. And you know what? I like Jermaine, but he just got me at the right time. I was weight. I just didn't deal with the weight. The weight was a problem. That's not taking anything away from him. He fought the right fight, but I didn't have my snap. Anyone that knows me, anyone that sparred with me, anyone that knows being in the ring with me, I didn't have that snap. And I remember coming back to my dad, after maybe 3 or 4 rounds, and I was just like, Dad, I can't, it's not there, man. It's not there. So I had to continue. And you know what? I actually still made it really close.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't, it's like he didn't beat me down. I gave my all, but it wasn't there anymore. And then basically what happened was then, obviously I lost that fight, split decision. And then I was the best part of another year out, waiting for the Southern Area title. It's too long in boxing. Too long a gap.
Especially when you don't have that experience to fall back on.
It's too long a gap. I'm 38 years old, been in a tough fight. I knew my body was starting to fall back on me. And I said, Dad, is it time? Is it? But then the opportunity of the Southern Area title pops up. I was supposed to fight Alan Higgins originally. That fell through. And then the bogeyman Renda said, oh, well, I'll take it. Because that's what he's like, Mr. Sylvester Stallone himself. I'll take the fight. Yeah, I'll fight anyway. You know how he is. And you know what? He took the fight and he was a tough
punching
man. Do you know what it is? Yes, he is a heavy puncher, but I wasn't hurt in the fight. He caught me with the only time he hurt me in the fight was he hit me with some good body shots, which I think played into the effect of the later rounds. He hit me with some good body shots. But what a fight. What a fight. Like I look back and I think, oh man, again, another one. Could have probably been stopped in round 3. Could have been probably stopped. I gave him such a pasting in that round to the point of like his corner were that close to throwing in the towel anyway.
They never released the tape, did they?
Not properly, but it's obviously with my film documentary coming, there's a massive part of the fight. Okay. It's based off of that, yeah.
I mean, that was a Fight of the Year contender, you and Render.
Yeah, it was.
How satisfying was it then to prove that this, I'm going to leave myself open here for a left hand from you, but this pretty boy ex-footballer has left his heart and soul in the ring. Did that was that almost your stamp and saying, I have done that, I've dug deep, there's a Fight of the Year there, that's my heart and soul.
Yeah.
That proves I'm not just this.
Basically, as a man always knows when he's given his all. A man will always know if he's given his heart and he's given his all. So although I lost my 2 title fights, which I should have won, but I didn't, that's the way it goes, that's boxing. I knew retiring the next day after Cello Render, I knew that my body said, thank you very much. I'm done with you. And that's why I had the confidence to retire and move on with my life, because I wasn't going to be in a position to not only lose anymore, because I didn't like losing, but I didn't want to put my body through it anymore. You know, we're looking at 24 years or so of a elite level competing. It's a long time. And when I done the interview for IFL TV with Coogan, and for him to say, you know, as you said, to leave the sport of boxing, I think, you know, you definitely got every, you know, person within boxing's respect. That's what I ever wanted, just to have that respect to leave, not only to keep my family name in a valued position, but to come away from boxing, having held my own as a boxer, not because of my dad, not because of my uncle, but because I was in Fight of the Year, because I won a professional belt, because I fought for elite titles. I'm the one that had to do what I had to do in the short space of time I had it.
I asked your dad this question. Do you think he was more proud of you as a fighter or a successful footballer?
I think he's just ultimately proud of me as a man. I don't think there's a really comparison as...
What about as a buzz? Do you think you got more of a buzz seeing you in the trenches fighting or scoring goals? I
think it's a hard one, because when I've scored goals, I've seen what it's done, you know, when I've scored goals, because, you know, it brings a feeling of it's a different feeling of scoring goals. Yeah, euphoria, that's the word I was looking for. But when I was fighting, there was a part of my dad where he thought he was fighting with me. So when I was in the ring, I wasn't on my own as such, because his spirit, something happened. It doesn't happen all the time.
Came out of the corner with you.
Joe Kawasaki had it with his dad. There's a spirit sometimes where, you know, you step forward. And there's times in certain fights that I've had where I've had to bite down on my gum shield and I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. Even with the last fight, I probably asked my dad after that round 3, I came back to my dad and he looked me in my eyes and I was so exhausted. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't even... And I went back out for the next 7 rounds. In reserve, and I was probably edging it. I had one more round to go before we probably took that title. But I collapsed in a way where I had nothing left, and I feel that's the only way my dad would be proud, because he knows me, that I would fight He's seen me fight. I've had wars in spar. I would fight as long as I can. But there's a point there where something leaves your body and there's nothing else you can...
And it doesn't come back in.
It doesn't come back. And that's where a lot of fighters make the mistake of thinking it does come back. Once it leaves you, it's gone. Can't chase it no more.
So what was harder, retirement from football or retirement from boxing?
Oh, retirement from football.
Was it?
Yeah. I mean, retirement from football was hard.
Because I suppose you left boxing with that satisfaction of the fight of the year, of perhaps overachieving, and maybe with football you underachieved.
I wouldn't say overachieving in boxing.
Okay.
I wouldn't say overachieving because I you know, give or take a few years prior to this, if you were to look at myself, if I would have been a 26-year-old going into boxing, which was probably what Curtis Woodhouse went in.
I was going to say, don't look at me and point and say 26 years old. I haven't seen that for a long time.
If I was going to go in like a 26, I mean, I feel like I could have maybe achieved that stature of a British title, possibly. But also another thing that a lot of people mention, if you've got education around boxing, is super middleweight is not an easy weight. It's not. Sure. It's not welterweight. It's not. They hit hard, man. Do you see what I mean? Like in the top elites of my, you know, at one point I'm about number 10 in the country. At one point, number 10. Like, but at the top of that 10 are you the Gales, the Eubanks, the Callum Smiths, the Paul Smiths, the Groves. I mean, no disrespect to me, but it's a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not wrong. You know, one thing I talk about with people a lot is social media and that kind of stuff. How does it compare? Because you've had crowds probably get on your back and thousands of fans getting on your back.
Yeah.
And you've had people snipe at you on social media. What's the difference? And is one worse than the other?
I just think the difference with me is that what happens is that sometimes my prison mind comes into effect and I'm like, listen, should we just meet? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes,
Curtis did,
yeah. Sometimes you're just like, who are you? Don't even know. Like, who are these people? Like, who have had this confidence to even try and bring a man down or try and, you know, make you feel in a way. But do you know what? I've just got to the point where I'm just like, whatever. Like,
was it like that with the fans? When fans were on your back, you know, social media, some of that stuff you might take with you for the rest of the day. After a football match, if a crowd's been on your back, when you left that day, is it all over, or do you still take it with you?
Well, social media wasn't really around when I was playing, thank God. I think if it was, I'm quite a sensitive soul, so it would have maybe affected me in certain ways, so I would have to probably have handled it better.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, just the way I play, or the way I played, I give the best account of myself. I'm a fighter. So, you know, when I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and fight for lost causes and do all that, you know, it's in me.
Tell me about the struggle after sport then. Obviously, last time we met was at near Oxford Street. You were doing some stuff for Life After Professional Sports.
Yeah.
I think you were just getting the British Boxing Board of Control interested as well.
Yeah.
And you've talked about it with your show on TalkSport as well. Why do all these guys who seemingly have it all struggle? Is there a common theme in retirement? And particularly, obviously, we talk about boxing. You know, I talk about all the time. Is it the loss of the buzz? Is it the loss of the identity? Is it the loss of structure and routine? Or is it all of the above?
Accumulation of all those things that you've mentioned have a great impact in how one develops later on now. So, like you say, identity. So who are we now? Don't play football anymore. So what do you do?
Well, what's your title as well? You're ex-footballer.
Title. So some struggle with that. Well, what's your title then? So if you don't play football anymore, what are you? Or what are you? You don't box anymore. So okay, so what are you then?
What's your purpose?
What is your purpose now? A lot of athletes struggle to find the next purpose. What do they get up every day for? Boredom, identity. Some are financially stable, some are not. The balance in the two is who's happier. Who knows? You got the stability of a financial. So many footballers I've interviewed, financially stable, but still as lost as the person that's broke
and miserable.
So it's I think it falls into all those.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is head injuries, CTE, and something that's become big in soccer, but obviously people don't really talk about it much in boxing, with dementia and punch drunk syndrome, as it used to be. Yeah. You've done both.
Yeah.
So a couple of things is, one, how big of an issue do you see it in football and boxing, which we know about, but a lot of people don't want to talk about? And do you have concerns? Because you've had a career of heading footballs and then another career of taking punches a little bit down the line in terms of age as well.
Yeah, I have concerns. I try not to
dwell on it.
I try not to put my energy into it.
Sure.
I try not to put things out there where there's a percentage or a possibility of things going which is out of my control, right? I headed the ball for years and I got punched in the head a few times. But I feel like maybe I just got out just in time. And that's all there is to it. What is further ahead for me from all those things that you mentioned, I can only really, it's God's timing and God's plan. So whatever is for me will be for me.
There is the link though with CTE and depression.
There's a massive link.
With head injuries.
There's a massive link.
The American footballers who've committed suicide or who've wound up bankrupt and stuff, a lot of them, it's being found obviously that they've had CTE. So the depression that we talk about regularly in boxing and that you and I have talked about for years, it could be linked to boxers being hit in the head.
Well, if they've got scientific proof that heading footballs has seen a lot of former footballers fall into dementia, it's only, if you're getting punched in the head for years, I think it's going to obviously have the same effect and worse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough. I think, it's one of those things where, people are learning, culture might change. When you talk about football, I think in America, where I was in Boston doing some research for my most recent book on head injuries, they're saying that heading the football is going to be banned worldwide, they think, by, I think, 2025-ish for under 14s. For under 14, so there'll be no heading.
Yeah, no, listen, I think it's an important factor from a health point of view, but how you take that out of the game, I have no idea.
And then how you implement this as well.
It's just this. Do you know what I mean? It's like saying boxing don't hit to the head.
Are you pleased you had those pro fights? Have they changed the course of your life? Did boxing salvage you in many ways?
Yeah.
It's given you a contentment that you didn't have beforehand.
Yeah. It gave me peace within competing. Like I don't feel like I have to go and be a success. I wouldn't jump into professional boxing ring now. Trying to chase something that I'm very full aware of, that, my body, I'm 43 in May, so I'm good. I'm just trying to do the best I can with, other passions that I have, do the best I can as a dad, do the best I can as a partner now to my girlfriend, and just trying to just push forward the best I can. It's not easy. Some days I feel like depression never really leaves me, but some days it can just bite me a little bit, just to let me know that it's still there.
What are your coping mechanisms? Do you have a go-to thing? Because when it bites, like I've been there, I remember speaking to Frank Bruno about it, and Frank was like, when it bit him, you know, Frank loves to train. He couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah, I can't really
And
train.
I've done
I
that.
mean, there's been many moments where, and anyone that knows me knows I've always loved a bit of training, but...
So how do you cope? What's the thing? Like, do you
embrace
sulk?
it. I have to embrace
the suck?
Just have to embrace it. Embrace it the best I can. And then there comes a point where, you know, I'll only have to look at my surroundings, and if I'm living like a bum, I'm not going to be that. So there's something that will get me up, get me out of bed, get me up. I hear certain people's voices. I hear I speak to my daughters. I FaceTime my daughters. I just try and just say, right, okay, I had a bad day, but let's not continue it.
You mentioned the documentary. It's pretty exciting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know when it's going to come out.
Well, obviously,
you've been working on it for years.
Yeah, 5 years now. With the pandemic and everything that's come into play, it's put a pause on so much.
So what's the subject and who's in it?
The foundation is me, based around my careers, the struggles that I faced. And it's going into a level of similar to what my program is doing at TalkSport, but now it's visualizations and proper in-depth interviews. So I've interviewed other athletes from the likes of Kelly Holmes, Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, even people that haven't had mental health struggles, Jamie Redknapp, Alan Shearer. The list goes on,
There's a little fella called The Rock who's in it.
Yeah, just
Can't
a little,
forget that.
just a little guy. Yeah.
Tell us how that came about. How do you get The Rock in your documentary? Because you've been out there and done it. You filmed with him and stuff.
Yeah,
it's in the can.
You see, this is where I believe, like, sometimes you can put things out in life where from a visualization universe point of view.
Like The Secret.
Very much so. Sometimes I write things down and I, constantly focus on that happening. And I've done it a lot of times in my life. And I just literally reached out, although it helped with the partner I was with at the time, a family friend. The husband of that family friend was the director of Ballers, and he was like the main man. He's like Julian, his name is, absolutely fantastic guy.
And was he a Palace fan?
And he's a Palace fan.
Which is mega, isn't it?
And he's a Palace fan, right? So I'm just like, okay, what should I let? So I wrote a heartfelt email to The Rock, and I sent it over to Julian. I said, listen, I don't want to ask for anything really, but I think this would be a massive deal if you could have a conversation with Dwayne, just see what he thinks. I mean, a week later, little did I know, about 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone would go off. And it's Julian saying, Leon, I spoke to Dwayne. He loves what you're doing. He's looked into your story. Let's fly you over to LA. Before you know it, a week later, I'm on the Baller set.
Balling.
About to sit down with the main man himself. And I just was just in a, I was in awe, man. Heard him coming in the hotel room. I remember him coming in. He's a big guy, sat down. And we was quite cautious of the time because he's filming.
Sure.
He had to get back on set and all that. And I'm looking around and I'm getting a bit nervous because I'm the one interviewing. It's not really my field, so I'm doing all the interviewing now. And so I was like, right, Dwayne, thanks for doing this. Like, lovely to meet you. He's like, yeah, no problem, man, no problem. And then he's like, I said, I'm a bit cautious. I'm cautious of the time, and I know like you've given us that, so I'm going to get straight into it. And I'm going to ask you like a direct question. Yeah, cool, no problem, man. Anyway, I've gone, so Dwayne, have you ever suffered from depression? And he paused for about 10 seconds, and he's just looking at me like this. And I was like, and he went, no, like that. And then I started panicking.
I'm out.
Well, he's not going to talk about nothing then. If like, we know you've suffered, but he's obviously, you know what it's like.
You don't want to go there.
So I'm looking back at the team and I'm like thinking, okay, what should I do? Like, I don't know what to do. He saw me panicking and he started to smirk and he's gone, oh man, I'm going to give you more than that, man. Don't worry. I'm going to give you more than that, man. Come on. And then, do you know what? He gave me the best hour. Like, insightful, very special human being in what he, even to just sit down with me and do that. This is the biggest Hollywood star, you know, worth the best part of nearly 200 million or whatever it is. No disrespect, but he's sitting down. I'm a kid from Fulton Heath who, yes, has played professional football and yes, has been in professional boxing and all the things that come with it. But this is the biggest Hollywood star now. And I'm a kid from South London, being able to talk to someone that is so influential, that was so honest. And the interesting thing I got from that interview was what he said to me about, it was only the Christmas, probably a few months after Christmas. So he said it was only this Christmas just gone that I had a very serious bout of depression. Like, really got hold of me, you know? Fitness is his life. He obviously puts a lot into his fitness. Very similar, trains ridiculously hard. Family man, and does his best. But this is why I keep telling everyone, don't come down to no money, what you earn. This guy's worth millions, but yet the man can still be affected by something called depression, which was quite astonishing. So when it's coming, it's going to be probably my biggest achievement.
When are we looking at? Do you need to do more interviews or?
I've got a couple more to do.
Okay.
Got a couple more to do, but it'll be this year.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be this year.
As far as your own sporting career is concerned, is it mission accomplished? I mean, we've admitted it. Everything's done. Football gone, boxing gone.
Yeah.
Satisfied?
I'm satisfied. Only if someone said to me, going to give you X, Y, and Z to either have a rematch with Cello or just there's something in me where I'm like, the ego in me, like, I can get you. Do you know what I mean? But then there's another side where, no, you know what? That I want him to have his glory. I knew how much it meant to him, not just because he beat me, but I knew for a number of years this is a fighting man that's been trying to achieve something within boxing. And although it was against me, he got a title which was credible. I think he deserves all that. So no, to be honest, I don't think I'd want to rematch. I wouldn't want to take that away from him.
But you're content with what you've done?
Yeah.
That's a no, but okay.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever be content. When I feel I'm content from a competing point of view. So, you know, I'm not going to jump into the ring again, but I'm not content. I'm always trying to make a difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So the difference between retiring from football to then retiring in boxing is that I was already planning what I was going to do. I was already planning the route of, you know, that's why I was able to retire the next day after I lost my fight, because, you know, I was doing stuff. I was doing the lap stuff. I was doing my mental health speaking. I was doing all these things, and then the film came, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Well, like you, I mean, I had a pretty disastrous, or low, should I say, December, January, for no real reason. There was no major triggers. But the only thing that you can do when you get like that is literally stay in the fight, isn't it?
Pretty much stay in the fight and just understand that, you know what, it's going to be over soon. it's just understanding you're just having a few bad rounds, and you know, the rounds are what they are. You're not going to win every round, you know, in life.
That's what I say. That's one of what I say is not every day can be a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, you're not going to win every round in life, and that's what I've realised and educated myself with.
But maybe that's part of the problem, in the sense that you felt some of this euphoria where you've had days that are 9 and 10 out of 10, that maybe you still want that. Whereas for me, I think I found something in a contentment where I'm quite happy if I have a solid run of days at 6.5 or 7 out of 10. For me, that's happiness. But it's difficult when you've been up there to then settle for this.
Yeah.
But having me not being there, this is winning for me.
Yeah, I think it's when you can feel that contentment within. I mean, if I was to ask you this question, are you happy? Can you answer that?
I'm content.
But are you happy?
I don't strive for happiness. I need contentment.
So that's what I find interesting. When you say like you don't strive for happiness, why would one not want to be happy?
Happiness for me is a moment, and you can't live in moments. Something triggers happiness. I don't think it's normal. I think you're searching for something you can't find if you're trying to walk around and be happy all the time.
So you think
something
it's more
needs
of a
to trigger
process, you think?
Yeah, and I think actually contentment is happiness.
So that's more like peace.
Exactly. And I think if you can have that peace, then you're not going to be chasing something that you want all the time, because you can't have it all the time.
Yeah.
You can't. And by searching for it, you're always going to be looking for something you can't find.
Right. I like that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I'm content with that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with it.
Yeah.